9th, 2016. Tonight, we have petitions under continuances and also new business. A couple of housekeeping rules. First one would be if you have an electronic device, if you could please turn it off. Second is if you plan on speaking on behalf of a petition, either for or against, please sign in at the podium with your name and address before addressing the board. And our first matter before us is under continuances, ZB 2016-18. The petition's a special permit and variance. The applicant is Jeff Schembeckler. The address is 374 to 386 Chelmsford Street. And the petition seeking special permit and variance approval to expand and upgrade the existing Domino's Pizza to create additional parking spaces and a new drive-through window. The proposed project is located in the Regional Retail Zoning District and requires special permit approval from the Zoning Board under Article 12, Table of Uses, and variance approval from the Zoning Board under Section 6.14 of the Lowell Zoning Ordinance. We've received a communication dated May 3rd from the petitioner. I'll read it into the record. I am writing as attorney for Jeffrey Schembeckler to request that the Board of Appeals hearing scheduled for Monday, May 9th be continued until Monday, June 13th. And the request for the continuance is to allow the planning board to act on a request for site plan approval. So hearing that, could I have a motion? So Joe, June 13th, is that's been accepted by the city?
Yeah, that's the right date.
Okay, so could I have a roll call on that, or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2016-18 for a special permit and variance for 374 to 386 Chelmsford Street to be continued to June 13th.
We have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Perrin.
Approve continuance.
Mr. Bailey.
Continue to June 13th.
Mr. McCarthy.
Continue to June 13th.
Mr. Peck.
Continue.
Mr. Palio.
Continue to June 13th.
Okay, our next matter before us is ZB 2016-16. The petition's a special permit. The applicant is Connector Park Equity Partners, LLC. The property is located at 42 Wellman Street. And the petition seeking site plan review approval for a proposed 6-story building to contain 240 residential units at 42 Wellman Street. The applicant proposes to construct a 452 parking garage and 46 additional parking spaces at grade, for a total of 498 parking spaces to serve the proposed use. The proposed project is located in the HRC High-Rise Commercial Zoning District and requires special permit approval with the Zoning Board of Appeals under Section 8.3 of the Lowell Zoning Ordinance. And we've received communication from the petitioner dated May 9th. Read into the record. At the request of the applicant, please continue the above referenced public hearing to June 13th, signed by George Elides and George Theodoro. Could I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2016-16 for a special permit for 42 Wellman Street to be continued to June 13th.
I have a second.
Second the motion.
Roll call.
Mr. Perrin.
Continue June 13th.
Mr. Bailey.
Continue to June 13th.
Mr. McCarthy.
Continue to June 13th.
Mr. Peck.
Continue.
Mr. Palio.
Continue to June 13th.
Okay, I'm going to take the agenda out of order. The next petition we're going to entertain is under new business. ZB 2016-29, the petition's a special permit. The applicant is Kang Realty Trust. The property is located at 26 Wood Street. And the petition seeking special permit approval for the installation and internal illumination of signage for a recently renovated Dental Dreams under Section 6.3 of the City of Lowell Zoning Ordinance. Is the petitioner here for 26 Wood Street? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Paul Godet, representing the owner. The owners are not here as yet.
Do you need the owners here?
You'll forgive me, I have very bad hearing.
Okay.
The acoustics here are not very good.
Yeah. Do you need the owners here in order to proceed ahead?
I didn't understand you, I'm sorry.
Okay. Joe, can you,
I would like to have the owners here, please.
okay, so we'll continue with our next matter, and then whenever they show up and whenever we get to you, we'll
Thank you.
entertain your petition. Thank you. Okay. All right, back to business. Our next petition is back to continuances. The petitions of variance, this is ZB 2016-21 for variance. The applicant is George Theodoro. Property located at 55 Florence Road. The petition seeking variance approval to construct a new single-family dwelling without the minimum lot area per dwelling unit, and frontage pursuant to section 5.1 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. Good evening, Mr. Theodoro.
Good evening, Mr. Bailey. Attorney George Theodoro representing the petitioners Bill Silk and his wife Marion Silk, the owners of the property at 55 Florence Road. Both myself and Attorney George Elides will be representing the petitioners herein and handling various parts of the public hearing. Mr. and Mrs. Silk have lived in the Highlands for 30 years, and they've lived at this residence for the last...
I'm sorry, Mr. Theodoro. Mr. Perrin has an announcement.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, as previously stated on a record, I will recuse myself from this petition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, please continue.
Mr. and Mrs. Silk have lived in the Highlands for the last 30 years. For the last 14 years, they've lived at the property at 55 Florence Road. They have raised their 4 children in this house at 55 Florence Road, and is at this point in their lives, the children are just about finished with their education, and this home that they live in right now, which they've raised their family in, was built in 1900. It consists of 5 bedrooms. It's a costly house to maintain, and they're looking to downsize. They're looking to subdivide their property, which is approximately 16,000 square feet, and to build a new home for themselves on the subdivided lot next to them. To build a home that is in style and conforms with the style and character of the neighborhood. It's a mixture of homes in the neighborhood that are some capes, some colonials, some split levels, some Tudors, and so they're looking to build a home, and they put a sample of the home that they intend to build in with the materials. It's approximately an 18,000 square foot home that we believe that would fit in well in the neighborhood. And what this will allow them to do is to stay in this community. They have deep-seated roots in the community, and they wish to stay and live at this home on Florence Road. They live to live there for the rest of their lives. We did, when we were here the last time, there were a number of people that came and in opposition, and what we did is we had a neighborhood meeting on April 28th. Thankful to Nancy Judge at the Highlands Neighborhood Association. We exchanged information there, and we had a discussion with respect to what my clients would like to do at this property. Based upon information that was exchanged there, I think it's important to mention that there are 2 individuals, and we understand that there may have been more, but 2 individuals who had previously been in opposition and had their name on a petition against this, had sent in communications to the DPD, taking their name off that list. And namely, that would be Don Denome, who's the vice chair of the Highlands Neighborhood Association, based upon information that he received at the meeting. And also attending that night at the meeting was City Councilor James Leary, who also requested that his name be taken off in opposition, based on information that he received at that meeting. You do have before you a list of their abutters, the people who live to the left of them, the people who live to the right of them, the people who live to the rear, are all have signed a petition in support and have no objections at all, knowing that the Silks are going to be living there at this new home that they would like to construct and stay within the Highlands. They have a presentation which we would like to play for the benefit of the board and the benefit of the public. Before I do that, there is one change I would like to add to this petition. It came to our attention that we would like to add a variance for floor area ratio because the home that they would like to build is approximately 18,000 square feet, that we would need a variance for FAR in order to comply, to have a home that sits in with the style and character of the neighborhood. With that said, what I would like to do is to turn this over to Bill Silk to have him play this presentation, or I think maybe, Joe, you can cue it up and play it right now just as a... Do you have to do anything?
Sure, thank you. I'm Bill Silk, 55 Florence Road, and as much as we wanted to build an 18,000 square foot house, we downed it a bit to 1,800 square feet. Joe, can you play that, please? Thank you.
And play button at the bottom of the presentation if you care to stop. Hello, my name is Bill Silk, and we put together this presentation in order to share information about our zoning board request for 55 Florence Road. I'm joined here by my wife, Marion Finaro Silk, and our 4 kids, Anna, Rachel, Mary, and Danny. It was a short 30 years ago this June that Marion and I were married at St. Margaret's Church. We've lived in the Highlands ever since, and our kids all attended the Bailey and Daly schools. Marion and I are both lifelong Lowellians. Our family has been and continues to be active in our community. There is a scroll bar on the right-hand side of the presentation if you'd like to pull down and see more. There is also a pause and play button at the bottom of the presentation if you care to stop and continue. If you have not been by the property, here is a city neighborhood map of where we live. The property on the left-hand side, outlined in green, is our property at 55 Florence Road. You will see that Washington Parkway is across from the northern side of our lot. We propose to divide the property into 2 lots. The first, which holds our existing home, would have 10,073 square feet of land. The second, which would be closer to Washington Parkway, would have 6,769 square feet of land, and that would be the new house lot. If you look 2 houses above our property to the north, you will see our neighbor's property outlined in blue. That lot is very similar in size to our proposed lot. That lot is 6,890 square feet. 2 properties to the east or right, you will see another highlighted in blue home. This is on Van Greenmead and has 6,256 square feet of land, smaller than the lot we are proposing. On Washington Parkway, there are 9 homes. All of the lots that you see outlined in pink are smaller than our proposed lot. Most of these lots are about 25% smaller in square footage than the lot that we are seeking approval on. Here is an overhead Google Earth image of the lot and surrounding homes. Our property is the one with 2 cars in the driveway and a pool to the right. Our neighbor's pool is to the right of our pool. If we gain approval, the pool and fence would be removed. Here is the same Google Earth image, but we've removed the cars, pool, and fence and taken a duplicate of our existing home and placed it on the proposed lot, just to give a visual perspective of the immediate neighborhood. This is a Google Earth image. As you face our home from Florence Road, these 2 homes are located to the left of our property. This image shows the 2 homes to the right of our existing property on Florence Road. This Google Earth image is of 15 and 11 Washington Parkway. And these are the 2 closest properties on Washington Parkway to our proposed lot. you can notice that the homes of our neighbors on Washington Parkway are closer together than the homes of our neighbors on Florence Road. It is important to keep in mind that the distance between the new proposed home and the home on either side of it will be greater than the Washington Parkway homes shown and greater than the current neighbors to our left and right on Florence Road. In no way, shape, or form are we looking to wedge a house into a neighborhood that simply does not belong. Our family has been incredibly fortunate to have spent the last 14 years here in our home at Florence Road. Our youngest daughter is completing college at the end of this year, and the kids have already begun to move out, which leaves us with a 5-bedroom, 100-year-old home. And if you have a 100-year-old home, which you may have, you understand that there's considerable upkeep involved with that. Unfortunately, due to some physical limitations, that upkeep has become much more difficult. I want to make sure that this is very clear. If we are fortunate enough to gain approval from the board to build a new home, the home will be for us. Marion and I would like nothing more than to spend the rest of the time that we are given here in a home on Florence Road. And we're not building this very small or tiny home. The home would be approximately 1,800 square feet of living space. And based upon the information we've shared with you folks and the research we've done, we believe it fits the neighborhood just right. I've included my contact information below. If you have any questions or comments or simply would like more information, please call or text me, and I will get back to you with an answer as quickly as I possibly can. Thank you all very much for listening.
And I might add that this presentation was sent and on the site of the Highlands Neighborhood Association. Also, we had also sent it to DPD, and it was, as of last week, part of the public record and the Lowell site as undercurrent projects for this specific property at 55 Florence Road. At this time, what I'd like to do is to have Bill and Marion Silk come up. They'd like to come up and say a few words to the members of the board with respect to their petition.
There's no pen. Hi, my name is Marion Finaro Silk, and I live at 55 Florence Road. I've been a resident of the Highlands all my life. I love my neighborhood, and I'd like to stay there forever. I really would like to ask you today, please, for your support. Thank you.
My name is Bill Silk at 55 Florence Road. Most people know me as Marion Silk's husband. And I appreciate the board taking our petition under advisement and consideration. I'd also like to thank the neighbors and abutters who have supported us in this project. You are the reason that our neighborhood is great, and that is why we want to stay, and I can't thank you enough. I also want to state that over the last 30 years, I know of no one who has given more of their volunteer time to the community in our neighborhood than my wife, Marion Finaro Silk. Whether it's the Bailey School, Daly School, Lowell High School, Friends of Lowell High School, St. Margaret's Church, Katie's Closet, the list goes on and on. Marion, our neighborhood is better because of you, and I thank you for that. I ask for the board's support and help tonight. We will not let you folks down if we are fortunate enough to gain the approval to build a home. And more importantly, we will not let down the people who have supported us and put their trust and faith in us to do what is best for the neighborhood. And that is exactly what we intend to do if we're fortunate enough to gain approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill and Marion. We have a number of neighbors are here to speak in support on behalf of Bill and Marion Silk. And through you, Mr. Chairman, I leave it to you.
Okay. What I'm going to move to next is, before we open it up to the public, I just want to read a few things into the record. You had mentioned a couple of emails that went out, whether in support or in opposition, but since we didn't really commence our last meeting, I just want to read a few things into the record. So we the board, received two lists, one in favor or in support of the petition, and we also received a list of residences in opposition. Just from I'm not going to read in all the people here, but just on a count, there was on the, and it's also in your package, I believe you submitted to us, it looks like we had 20 residences that were for the petition, and then the listing of opposition was at 62 residences. So I want that to be part of the record. We also received, or I personally received a letter that was dated April 12th, and this was from 130 Florence Road. A very nicely written letter explaining what happened with the opposition. As you know, Ms. Theodoro, you showed up, you were given the list. That's why you asked for the continuance. That letter, which was very nicely done, explained, I guess I'll call it, the mechanics of why it was presented when it was presented. So I want that read into the record. And then you also mentioned there was some email trails. So on May 5th, the board received a couple of emails for support of the petition. May 6th, we received another 10 residences in support of the petition. May 6th, which Mr. Silk just presented, that was also sent to the board for their review. And we also received on May 7th another support for the petition, and also, as you mentioned, Councilor Leary, was submitted on May 9th. So I just wanted to make sure those were mentioned for the record. And do you have anything else you want to add at
No.
this point? Okay. So what we'll do is we'll open it up to the board. Excuse me, we'll open it up to the public first, and then we'll move from there. All right, if there's anybody here that'd like to speak in favor of this petition, in favor?
My name is Kendall Wallace. I live at 95 Harvard Street in Lowell. I've lived in the Highlands all my life. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the petition by the Silk family. Although I'm not an abutter, I'm familiar with the immediate neighborhood, and we faced a similar issue in my neighborhood a few years ago. It was before this board. And at that time, it involved splitting the lot next door to me. And we met with the people, and I must say that turned out quite well. They built a $500,000 home next door to us. They improved the neighborhood. So when I saw Mr. Silk's plan on the internet, I thought it was remarkably like what happened at 95 Harvard Street. And I just wanted to say that that did work out well. We're very happy with it. We got some nice new neighbors. So I think the Silk proposal is similar. I'm not an architect or a builder, but I look at those lots and say, this can be done, and it can be done well. Mr. Silk and Mrs. Silk did not ask me to appear. I came really because I saw that and thought how remarkably like it was to our issue. The Silks have been good citizens. They've been involved in the community. They've been strong supporters of Lowell, particularly the schools, and they clearly want to stay in their neighborhood. I appreciate the concern of people who are opposed to this, but I just would encourage them to go by Harvard Street and see the home that blended in so nicely in our neighborhood. So I'd like to see them have the opportunity to stay. I'd hate to lose the Silk family. They've been very, very good citizens. So I hope you can approve this package.
Mr. Wallace, do you remember what year that was?
I'm terrible on time, but I'm guessing 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor? In favor? Yes, sir.
My name is Mark Anastopoulos. I'm representing my mom, who lives directly behind the Silks on 128 Sanders Avenue. I've spoken to my mom numerous times about this issue, and she's completely supporting this home being built. She thinks it'll be fine for the neighborhood. And again, it's directly behind her house. And she does not oppose this at all, at all. She has lived in that house since 1961. So.
Okay.
Do I put my address down or her address down? Because I no longer
Put
live
your name and just, you
right.
know, you can put, you know, representing
Okay.
the address at 128 Sanders Ave, please. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Judy Hagan, and I live at 138 Sanders Ave. I live directly behind the Silks' existing home. I'm familiar with the petition that's against building this home, and I'm in disagreement of it. I have seen the plans. I've talked to them numerous times. I believe having the Silks stay in the neighborhood would be extremely beneficial. They've been phenomenal neighbors. I've lived in my home for 17 years now. I would hate to see them leave. I would hate to see this not go through. I do believe that the home that they build will be perfect for the neighborhood. It will be a different home, but it will be a perfect fit for the neighborhood. And I certainly hope that you take this into consideration.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
My name is Amy Wu. I live at 31 Florence Road. I was the blue square on that plot that is similar in size to the subdivision that the Silks are suggesting. I'm in full support of this subdivision proposal. I've known the Silks since I moved in 13 years ago, and they are fantastic neighbors. They are what I think we, as the citizens of Lowell, we want in our neighborhoods: engaged, committed, and not just for themselves. They've raised their children, their 4 children, to be similarly civically minded. And so I can only feel that were they to leave, it would be a loss for our neighborhood, for our community. And both being so well thought of and so well thinking of us, their proposal is tastefully and thoughtfully and professionally done. And so I have no reservations that they will not fulfill their promise to be the wonderful people that they are, the wonderful neighbors that they are. I hope you will consider it. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
My name is Alison Jarvis. I live at 69 Florence Road. We are the blue house, 2 houses to the left of the house that they currently live in. My husband Stephen, we have lived on the street. This is our 20th year there, and nobody wants to leave the street, so I understand why the Silks would like to do this. We have no qualm with them dividing the lot and creating a new home. Our actual home is probably similar in square footage. It's not 18,000 square feet. It's a little over 1,800 square feet. So size-wise, it's probably very similar. Nice thing about our street is that all the homes are quite different. So the home they intend to put on that lot will actually probably fit in quite well and just add to the fabric of the street. The Silks are wonderful neighbors. We hope they will stay. We hope they have the opportunity to stay. And we most certainly support their desire to subdivide and build a home. We hope you will consider that.
I'm Stephen Jarvis, 69 Florence Road, Allison's husband. I support what my wife has said about this subdivision, and also reiterating the fact that the homes on the street, very different styles of home all along the entire street. And another point too, I think it would be nice to have another way to get more tax money in the city of Lowell by having another residence on the street.
Thank you.
Patty Nowaziat, 11 Van Greenby Road. I'm the tiny lot that you saw in blue. And my house is about 1,800 square feet upstairs and with a finished basement. And so living on the Highlands for my 50-plus years, and having been friends with the Silks, our daughters are friends with their girls. I would hate to lose them as neighbors, but I think the home will add to the character of the neighborhood and will make the neighborhood richer as their lives have made our lives richer. So I appreciate you considering their petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yep, good evening. My name's Anthony Sigliano, 28 Fairfield Street in Lowell. I am not an abutter to the project site or the proposed project, but I do support the project, and my main reason for supporting the project is, looking at Mr. Silk's presentation. To me, the precedent has been set in the immediate area where there are several lots that are of equal size or smaller to the Silks. Moreover, I'm a lifelong Highland resident. I've known the Silks for many years, and I can attest to their contribution to the city and the neighborhood. So I hope you look at this petition favorably this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Byrne, and I live at 64 Florence Road. I am in favor and I support the Silks wholeheartedly. I know them as a neighbor and friends, and I believe them when they say that they are going to build a piece of property that is going to be adequate to our neighborhood. They are active and honest participants in our community, and I hope that you will consider their proposal this evening.
Good. Thank you. Good evening.
My name is Janet Walsh. I live at 12 Gibson Road in Lowell. It dumps out from Florence Road right at my house. I'm the newbie in the neighborhood. I have met the Silks through the dogs, but I've met their girls and their son, and I love my neighborhood. I love my house, and I'm very happy about it. I'm not political, but I've looked at the plans. It appears as if, for me, and again, I'm not a professional, but it's a larger lot than Heather has across the street. And I believe them when they say they're going to live in it and they're going to take care of it. And they're wonderful people and great neighbors. And I would hope you would consider it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Gregory Judge, and I live at 174 Florence Road. I've known Marion for pretty much my whole life. We went to Grimm School together, and we met up again at the University of Lowell. I think she's just a wonderful person, and I've known her and Bill for as long as I can remember, and I think that by staying in the neighborhood and allowing them to have this property built, that it would be only beneficial to the city. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening.
My name is Kathy Finneral, and I live at 21 Canoyle Street. I have viewed the video that the Silk sent out to the neighbors, which was displayed this evening. My one concern was addressed, which was how the lot size compared to the surrounding properties. It is in line with the existing neighborhood, and I am in favor of this variance. I have also known Marion for quite a long time. She is extremely active in the community. She has done so much, and I would hate to lose her as a neighbor. So please consider being in favor of this variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
I'm Claire Reese. I live at 94 Marshall Avenue. This is my husband, Joseph. I'm also Marion's sister, and I hope that this proposal goes through. Florence Road has been somewhere she's loved since she was little. It was always her favorite street in the Highlands, and I think that putting the house that Bill and Marion have shown everybody would just better the neighborhood, and just, I know, keeping them in the neighborhood would be beneficial to everybody.
Also, Joe Reese, also like to add that their proposal that they've put in place is very much in the character of the neighborhood, seeing that the 8 different lot sites that are smaller than what they're proposing. And throughout the Highlands neighborhood, we personally have a 7,000 square foot lot that not only has a 1,700 square foot house, 2-car garage, and an in-ground pool. So given that the Silks have what the Silks are proposing, I find it very much to be in the character of the neighborhood and hope that you would support their proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Raymond. I live at 531 Stevens Street, and I'm very familiar with Florence Road. I grew up at 64 Florence Road, and I think the Silk's new home will be a perfect blend to the neighborhood, and I hate to lose them as neighbors. They're wonderful people, and I hope you're in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
And my name's Mark Raymond. I'd like to mention, if someone came to my house with the proposal to shoot down a house, I'd sign it, because I wouldn't want a house. But knowing the situation, I don't think that number you mentioned is accurate as far as the signatures that signed it. If there were 60 people in here tonight, that would be a accurate number. But when there's only a dozen people opposing it, that number you mentioned before, I don't know if you said it was 60, I would have been on that list myself if I didn't go to the presentation and learn what was going on. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Anita Downs. I live at 48 West Forest Street, not in a butter either, but a neighbor. Walk by this house every day, and when I'm thinking about the Silks and how long they've lived in the neighborhood, how long they've been friends, they've made so many contributions to our community, and they're very conscientious about the neighborhood. They would never do anything that would have a negative impact to the neighborhood. Seeing the presentation, we had some questions too about the lot size and how the house would fit in, and I can't imagine that it wouldn't. I know that our lot is much smaller than that, and our house fits in our neighborhood perfectly, so I'm in support, and I hope you will be too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Ralph Funaro. I have property at 273 Westford Street in Lowell, Massachusetts, in the Highlands. Marion Funaro Silk is my sister, and Bill is my brother-in-law. And if there are a few, my thunder has been stolen, and so I'm not going to be redundant and bore you with the. I just have to say the excellence of that presentation. If that's indicative of what they plan on doing with that property, it's going to be a win-win situation. If there's anything that has to do with the words that I can describe this couple: integrity and honesty, love of community, love of that neighborhood. And if they say they're going to do something, it's always top shelf. Any project that they have undertaken over the past 30 years as a married couple has always been top shelf, no corners cut. So please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dan Squalia, and I reside at 33 Ursula Street. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the background of Bill Silk and the efforts he's made to make sure he wanted to do a project that would fit. He would constantly be in touch with me, as you are familiar with. I did a similar project in Pawtucketville. And as Mr. Wallace pointed out, good projects presented by good people, done with the right purpose, and taking into consideration the neighbors in the city, usually are a win-win situation. A lot of efforts. Bill made many, many trips, many phone calls, asking many times, and the repetitiveness of his thoughts was, will this look right? Is this too big? Is this too small? I think he has a lot of hours into trying to get it right. And I think the proposal that you see tonight, he's done just that. By no intention whatsoever would he ever do something that would degrade from the neighborhood or from his neighbors. And that's really what is important in our city, to have the heritage and the people that remain in the city that take such a great deal of respect for the city and put back into the community, whether it's social programs, whether it's volunteering, or whether it's just doing the right thing when you have a situation like this. So respectfully, I hope you do consider this proposal. I think it's a good one. It's brought forward by good people, and there's an awful lot of support. And I appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Ralph Hogan, 12 Canoyle Street, Lowell. To follow up on Mr. Wallace's point, when I built my house in 2000, I appeared before this board. Thankfully, things were favorably worked out, but there was opposition. Since that time, 2 other houses have been built on Canoyle Street, which is directly across from Mrs. Anastopoulos' house. Both houses, Mario across the street, has increased the value of my house, and I thank Mario. Aside of Mario, the Finnerals house, and I thank you for increasing the value of my house. Every time there's a new house built, there's a lot of consternation. But most of the time, you'll find that the value of the houses around it are increased, which is a good thing. The area that we're speaking of at the intersection of Washington Parkway and Florence Road, this lot fits the dimensional equivalent of some of those other lots in the area. There is no big difference. There's no problem as I see it. The makeup and design of the house conforms. The technical part will make your job easier. The Silks have been in the neighborhood a long time. I was a soccer coach, and 80% of my team, the parents, are behind me. I think this will be a very positive effect on the city, both from a tax point of view, but also from a family and fabric point of view, as Mr. Squillier pointed out earlier. So I would urge each and every one of you to check your calendar and support this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in favor? In favor?
Good evening. My name is Nancy Judge. I reside at 28 Fosh Street, and I co-chair the Highlands Neighborhood Association, along with Don Denome, who is chairing our meeting tonight. I know that Don did send in correspondence, which Chairman Bailey did mention, but I would like to take this opportunity to clarify a statement. I was asked by a friend to sign a petition against the subdivision at 55 Florence Road. And I said at that time I would sign it because I thought of a subdivision of Livingston Avenue and a few other places within the Highlands. And I thought, oh, here we go again. So I said I would sign the petition, not thinking of Harvard Street and how well that went. So there are some little things in the Highlands that do go well. So after doing my homework, I realized that the property had belonged to Bill and Marion Silk, who I know and respect, and are trying to downsize and would like to stay on Florence Road. So I am kind of reclusing myself from the vote, either for or against it. But I do want you to know that, as the attorney stated, the Highlands Neighborhood Association did meet on the 28th for an informal meeting so that the Silks could explain their project and answer any questions that were presented to them. At the end of the meeting, it was obvious that there was no solution for some of those opposing the project. So I asked this board to listen to both sides, and I am just going to put this resolution into your hands. You know best. Each situation is unique, and that's why the 5 of you are here. So good luck, and good luck to the Silks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone here that'd like to speak in opposition? Opposition? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Navetta, and I live at 130 Florence Road, and I would like to speak about the variance on 55 Florence Road. Looking back 100 years, the density of Washington Parkway was one reason the zoning requirements in the city were changed. The last 3 homes sold on Florence Road had more square footage than number 55, yet the people left the integrity of the neighborhood intact and its character and downsized into newer homes, some within the neighborhood. 2 off-street parking spaces that are mentioned on the film will not fill the needs of a family with 4 or 5 cars. Thus, the overflow will be parked in front of other people's property. Present in the immediate area is a fire hydrant, a telephone pole, and a tree. Our current real estate values are based on the homes sold in the neighborhood. Their original home value will decrease if the subdivision is approved. In turn, they will have 2 smaller properties to sell, while the values of the existing properties will be decreased. Granting the subdivision will set a precedent for further development of smaller parcels that were never meant to be developed in the neighborhood. The neighborhood is approximately 50 to 100 years old. It has a suburban feel to it as you look up and down a continuous green space. It travels up and down both sides of Florence Road. Please leave the green character of our neighborhood intact. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Sam Navetta. I reside at 130 Florence Road. The Lowell zoning ordinance in section 1.2 in part states, encourage the most appropriate use of the land throughout the city, prevent overcrowding of the land, and lessen the congestion in the streets. If we look at Florence Road, we have 33 properties, 30 of which have homes. The last house built on Florence Road was in 1970, and the lot size was 10,980 square feet. We have 5 properties under the size of 9,500 square feet, 25 properties greater than 9,500 square feet, and we have 3 properties greater than 17,400 square feet. The average lot size on Florence Road is 11,300 square feet. Given this background information, if the variance is approved, from 31 Florence Road to 69 Florence Road, there will be a total of 6 properties with a frontage of 438 feet, further increasing the density of an already dense portion of Florence Road. Adding another home on the proposed subdivided lot will create overcrowding, possible congestion, and possible parking problems. If the variance is approved, 3, if not 4 additional properties on Florence Road could pursue the same path. If we look at the surrounding neighborhoods from Lincoln Parkway, including all of the streets to Florence Road, we have an additional 10 properties that could possibly subdivide. The suburban nature of this section of the Highlands will be lost, and this is what I don't want to see. I thank you for your patience.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in opposition? Opposition? Yes, sir.
Hello, Chairman Bailey and Board. My name is Mark Reyna, and this is my wife, Lori Reyna. We live at 30 Florence Road, directly across the proposed variance property. So I've taken the liberty, I sometimes ramble, so I'm going to try to be concise, and I've tried to specify some notes here that to help direct us. So my wife and Lori and I have lived at our house at 30 Florence Road for approximately 27 years, where we raised a son who's currently serving in the United States Navy and our daughter who is pursuing a degree in special education at Westfield State. I own an internet marketing agency which services the lead generation needs of many of the world's largest technology companies, including Google, Microsoft, and IBM. My wife owns and operates a vibrant hair and beauty salon. We've enjoyed a very cordial relationship with the Silks during their 14 years of being our across-the-street neighbors and have known them to be a very good family. Regretfully, the Silks petition has caused us to take sides against the petition, as the proposed lot, as we all have discussed tonight, is 35% than the total required area. In addition, the frontage and lot width are painfully smaller than the code requires. After consulting with local leaders, several prominent members in the neighborhood, and real estate professionals, we felt that the approval of the variance and the subsequent construction would increase the density of homes on Florence Road and would likely be used as precedent for other subdivisions and additional density in the general neighborhood. By our count, I think Sam had a count of 14. My count was 18 lots in the greater Highlands that expose significant risk to this type of development. And our fear is once the precedent is set, we feel others will just be off to the races for profit taking. After my wife and I made our decision to oppose the proposal, we chatted with additional neighbors and quickly found the support we hoped to find. In fact, so much support, and I'm sorry, Chairman, we had, maybe some of the names were redundant, but we had counted over 100 signatures against the variance petition. And they were owners all on Florence Road, Sanders, Lincoln Parkway, Rendo Drive, and Pine Street. And those petitions were given to the board a few weeks ago. Amongst the signees are city councilors. I understand Mr. Leary has recused himself from the against petition, former zoning board members, president of the Highland Council, who has recused himself, and members of Friends of Tyler Park. some of them feeling strongly that they are here tonight to support their against variance. In fact, during the course of our visits, we encountered a number of people who had signed the Silks petition claiming they were not aware of the Silks plans that would require a variance in a proposed lot that is substantially smaller than the current zoning allows. Could you get me that sheet of paper on top? In fact, if you look at the Silks petition, nowhere does it mention a variance was required or that the proposed lot is substantially inadequate. And you can see that at the very top of their petition. There's no mention of variance, no mention of variance in the presentation. We believe the signatures on the petition against represent a resounding vote against the proposed variance and should in and of itself cause the Standing Zoning Board to disapprove the special permit and variance request. However, there is more. Looking at paragraph 2 of Attorney Theodoro's statement of case, Mr. Theodoro maintains the Silks residence size and shape creates a hardship. The Silks own their current house is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family home on their existing property with a Zillow's estimate of $341,000. They've received substantial economic value from their property already. They've raised their family there. Where is the hardship? I'm having a hard time seeing the hardship. I'm very confident the board knows the zoning regulations inside and out, but just to help me frame what my position is, I'd just like to take an opportunity to read from section 11.2.3 of the Lowell zoning laws. Variance prerequisites. If the application for variance does not conflict with foregoing prohibition, variances can only be granted by the Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals must find all these prerequisites to consider before granting a variance, and the operative term is all. The failure to establish any one of them is fatal to the argument. The Board of Appeals is authorized to grant a variance from zoning ordinances only if each of the following jurisdictional conditions precedents exist. Special hardship is number 1. Owing to circumstances relating to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of such land and structures, especially affecting such land or structures, but not generally affecting the zoning district. I see no issues with soil conditions, shape, or topography of the current lot. And please note the code does not say the lot is not large enough to build another house on, so we need to subdivide it. Secondly, public good. Desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. Notwithstanding the additional traffic it ultimately will create, there is absolutely no public good in creating the precedent of approving variances of lots of 6,000 square feet and having people throw up new construction homes, destroying the character of one of Lowell's most sought-after older neighborhoods, potentially driving down home values and prompting a potential exodus from the neighborhood. Intent of zoning satisfied, and this is from the zoning code, quote unquote, without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent of zoning. So I maintain that this would demasculate the zoning laws to the point where why do you even have a zoning law if you approve this? So to summarize, the surrounding neighborhood did not speak against this request, it roared. We do not want to set a precedent and allow for approval and subsequent proliferation of these requests, devaluing our neighborhood, crowding our streets, and relegating the neighborhood to those fails seen in other Lowell neighborhoods. There is absolutely no hardship to be made in this case. In essence, not one jurisdictional condition that I previously mentioned exists. Not 3, not 2, not 1. In closing, I understand the Silks now have essentially an empty nest and want to downsize. Just this year, 2 other neighbors on Florence Road did just the same, Mr. Gary Murphy and Mr. Jim Armstrong. Both neighbors had ample land to do just what the Silks are proposing. Both opted to downsize by buying a smaller property in the Upper Highlands, on the same street or one street over, selling their former larger home while maintaining the integrity of the neighborhood. They did the right thing. We suggest the Silks pursue a similar route and urge the board to disapprove the request for special permit and variance. Do you have something you want to say?
Hi, I'm Lori Reyna.
Yep.
I just wanted to mention that, we may not be as well known in the neighborhood, even though we've been here as long as we have, because we had 2 children who had special needs. Both of them were diagnosed with autism as very young children and required a lot of energy and a lot of time to help them to grow and develop. And fortunately, today, one is, attending college without any support, and one is in the U.S. Navy. But unfortunately, we were not as involved in a lot of sports and schooling and those types of things because we just obviously couldn't be. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Bailey, Mr. McCarthy. My name is William Nichols. I live at 48 Rendell Park Drive, and I'm here to speak in opposition tonight to Florence Road. I guess I want to say that I do not know the Silks personally at all, and I'm willing to say that they're fine neighbors and good people, and I appreciate all their efforts into the city of Lowell and what they've done for years, and that's what we all want with neighbors. So I'm willing to concede that. I don't have an issue, but I also would like to say that I don't think that's a relative issue. When I looked at the proposal online, and I did get it, I'm also an active member of the Highland Neighborhood Group that I was unable to attend the special meeting that was held. But when I looked at Mr. Silk's map, which basically had the coding of the houses, which I think the board and the rest of the members here tonight have seen, I've lived in Lowell for 64 years. I've lived at Rendell Park Drive for 38, and I lived at 28 Fleming Street for the remainder of my life. As a boy, I've played in the neighborhood. I played in the Washington Parkway area, the Water Tower, and the Daily School. I've spent my whole life in this area, and I love the neighborhood like the Silks do. I called to the zoning board's attention that on the map that they presented, they have, according to what I'm seeing, 8 houses in red and 2 in blue. All of those homes were built in either 1900 itself, which the Silks home was, or 1912 or 1924, with the exception of 11 Van Greenby, which was built in 1950. Growing up as a kid in the 50s, I saw all of the newer homes being built in this neighborhood in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They're on all existing lot sizes, 10,000 square feet or more. And I guess while I too would hate to see the Silks go, I think in some of the plus statements that have been given tonight seem to suggest there's no other alternatives. I think what was just made before is that there are alternatives. One is called stay where you are and remodel an existing home, possibly move to another house, and even consider some other alternatives to just saying there are no alternatives and we have to move here or move out of our existing home. I think the variance that's being requested is the key. I would be speaking on the plus side if the Silks were looking to make a change of 250 square feet, 500 square feet, something minor in nature to get a lot size approved that would meet the requirements. This is a 32% variance from the 10,000 requirement to 60, let's call it 6,800. It's a major change. And I think if you take a look at the 55 Florence Road area, Washington Parkway, going north and going east, you will find that that is an older neighborhood. Those lot sizes on Washington Parkway range from 5,000 square feet to 5,200. But they were built in 1900. The code was different then. The major change in code that the City of Lowell put in place, I believe, in 1966, basically came with a more stringent code to basically try to avoid just the thing that 55 Florence Road is trying to accomplish. And I think although one could argue that it does fit on this property side and there are some close to it, yes, they do. But when you start looking south on Florence, Van Greenby, Rendell, Lincoln Parkway and Sanders Avenue, you will find that most of the homes have significant square footage greater than 10,000. And also, I think like a couple of other people have mentioned, I also did a little bit of an analysis on potential other homes that could be doing the same thing. And that's what I really have a problem with, precedent setting. And I came up with 16, I've heard mid-teens, that basically could be split. And I think right around that same neighborhood, I'm looking at the number 4 Florence Road could be split in two. Number 11 Florence Road with almost 18,000 square foot could have 3 lots on it. If you start going through and looking for the potential changes, it's significant and it can really change the neighborhood. I would be concerned with how it will look in that lot if it is approved. And I think also when you take a look at some of the homes that are on Washington Parkway, a lot of those are not applicable. I think they are in a totally different zoning area. It's called a TSF, which I think has zoning allowances to have smaller lots. Growing up on Fleming Street, Benton Street, Highland Avenue, all those homes are closer together. They're on much smaller lots, and they were built at the beginning and the turn of the century. So precedence is my major concern. I also think that I looked, and although I don't know the exact outline of the Tyler Park historic area, I think this property comes very close to boarding that. And I think it could be 1 or 2 houses away if I'm looking at it correctly. And I would be concerned with a brand new home being built that close to the Tyler Park area. Finally, I think if the proposal is approved, another concern I have is, would this only apply to the Silks having a new home developed? Or if it was approved by the board, could they then sell their existing house in this lot and have somebody new come in and buy it? If you know, that's another concern I would have with that. So I think to top it off, my major concern is precedence. I think it could really change the neighborhood. I too agree with the idea that I possibly see this as devaluing existing homes in the neighborhood, particularly south and on the other streets mentioned, which I live is only 2 streets away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, member of the board. My name is Vesna Noon. I live in 10 Gibson Road. I live in the Highland more than half of my life. You know, this is not an easy task to stand up here and, you know, I know the Sill, you know, going to build a nice home. I know they are very involved and active in the community. But my concern is that to be here to express the fear that I have that this proposal would invite other of similar size of lot to subdivide their lot. And this clearly is, people spoke before me that the precedent was set. There's many homes down that street and near that neighborhood that will do the same. So that is why I'm here. You know, I urge the board to look closely into this and making sure that this precedent doesn't set down the road for a similar size lot that will go forward to subdivide and express that, yes, we do have hardship. I do not see there's a hardship apply here. At least I don't see one that presented by the council tonight. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, member of the board. Good evening.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir.
Hello, everybody. My name's Dan Nguyen. I'm fairly new to the neighborhood. I'm only here for about 9 years now, but my wife has been a lifelong resident of the Upper Highlands, and my 9-year-old daughter now is a lifelong resident of the Upper Highlands as well.
Can you give us your address, please?
Excuse me?
What's your address?
Oh, I live at 127 Florence Road. That's 6 houses down from the proposed subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
Before I continue, I have to disclose that I am a local real estate agent for Coldwell Banker in Westford. And I'm here today to voice my concerns about the subdivision not as a real estate agent, but as a concerned resident of the neighborhood and of the street. Now, the reason why we're all here tonight is because we all love our street. I can tell you this, the reason why we moved to Florence Road is because, no offense, it doesn't look like Lowell. And it's the same thing that all of my clients say as well when I bring them around to Lowell, whether it be up over at Belvedere or the Upper Highlands, when they got priced out of the towns like Chelmsford or Westford. They always say, oh, I don't want to move to Lowell, you know, and I always have to bring them where? Florence Road. The reason why we love Florence Road is because the houses are unique, they're spaced out very well, and like I said, you know, everybody loves the street because there's not much congestion on the street. This particular street appealed to me more so than the two neighboring streets, you know, no offense to people who live on Sanders or on Van Greenby, because no one parks on the streets. My wife thinks it's kind of odd that, you know, I wanted to purchase a home where no one parked on the street, but I grew up in a very congested inner city area in Connecticut. And when I decided to move to this area, and I am more than financially capable of moving to one of the towns, but my wife is a lifelong resident of Lowell, and I wanted to raise my child in Lowell, you know. My wife's uncle was very instrumental in this town here. He's the late Richard P. Howe, you know, Mayor Richard P. Howe. And I can say to Mr. Silk that I believe that, you know, he's one of the people that I know of that has maybe done more for our neighborhood over the last 30 or 40 years. That being said, I'd like to begin by stating that I completely understand why the Silks want to stay in the area. You know, I don't want to move out of the area either. But when I have to tell you that I actually own two homes on Florence Road. And when my first home on Florence Road, maybe 6 years ago, no longer filled our family's current layout with our growing family, what did we do? We did what normal people do, all right? We waited for a neighbor to sell, and we bought their home. I bought the home right next door to me, and then I sold my home to a neighbor's child. You know, I don't want to see this neighborhood, you know, end up being like the rest of Lowell, you know. And when clients come around, like I said, you know, the one thing that they keep on saying to me when they talk about Lowell is it's too congested, you know. And, you know, even though the assessed values of our home may not go down, I could tell you that the market value may, you know, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Robert Hunt. I live at 48 Florence Avenue. I live on the north side of Pine in the TSF zone. So one of my main concerns is the breaking up of the multi-lot homes and adding other parcels. I've seen too much of it already. I've lived in the Highlands for 61 years. I've lived at 48 Florence Avenue for 37 years, and I hope that it's going to stop at this point. I feel very bad for the Silks tonight because I'm kind of on the fence. They appear to be very good neighbors, and I'd hate to see them leave. A couple of the questions that I have on the lot are basically start with the driveway area, the added impervious surface. As it stands right now, the driveway that they have has a single drive curb cut, yet that single curb cut has been paved over to a double wide. They propose another double wide on that area. They're going to have a walkway. So part of my reasoning here is, you know, the impervious surface that's going to be in the frontage that we have. The second thing that I have appears on this piece that was on the City of Lowell website is the plan. It shows the physical footprint of the added house being larger. And that's a question. Do I have the wrong, or do you see that the same way?
Well, I'll take your question under advisement.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So your concern is the...
Yeah, the house that's going to be built actually has a bigger footprint. It may not be as high or whatever, but the physical footprint seems to be larger than the one that they have right now. And I could be incorrect,
Okay.
but looking what I'm seeing that was presented on the website. That's what it appears to
Okay.
me.
Yep.
And the third thing, again, is the increased density on Florence Road. I do like it the way it is. You like the green space, and that's all I really have.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? 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 Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Theodoro, do you have any comments in regards to anything that was said so far? No? Mr. Elides, do you have any comments?
About me, Mr. Chairman. George C. Elides, Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell, and I'm here with Mr. Theodoro on behalf of the Silks. I have a few comments, but I think the principal thing I heard from the opponents to this project all related to the word precedent, and they didn't want to set bad precedents. Well, you know, the thing about zoning is that zoning sets out what's supposed to happen in certain neighborhoods in terms of dimensions, what you can build, how you build them, etc. Now, but they don't stop there. There is a process within the zoning of the city of Lowell that says there are times and places where, even though we have these rules and regulations, there are reasons why we give people an opportunity to say, yes, these are the dimensions, these are the situations that we want, but there are certain times when other types of things are warranted, where maybe even though it says you can or can't, in this particular, you need so many feet, you need to do this, that, and whatever, we're going to frame a board of appeals so that those people in their wisdom can listen to each and every one of those projects and decide the merits of those. So, and you, this is not like court where you have a precedent and when a judge makes a decision, or when the United States Supreme Court says this is the rule and the regulation and never it will vary, and that's precedent, that's not the case here. Your job, as you well know, and I'm not by any stretch trying to tell you your job because you know it, is you have to look at each and every case and see how does this fit into the grand scheme of events. So there was some talk about precedents, and as I say to you, let's look at each one of those situations and see where they fit and where they don't fit. So in terms of things like character of the neighborhood, I didn't hear a single thing other than the possibility that there might be a few more cars or anything like that that said that this changes dramatically, at least as far as the law is concerned, the character of this neighborhood. As far as special hardships go, well, you know, there are cases and cases of law that we deal with variances and special hardships, et cetera. And one of the things, for example, is that when you have an undersized lot, it all depends on how that all happened and how that fits into the hardship realm. Well, in this particular case, as I think we all know, there have been changes through the years in the zoning laws and the dimensions as we go along. One of the more recent changes, back in 2004, changed the minimum lot size of properties that you could do. Did that mean forever that you couldn't build on X, Y, and Z? No. It said each one of the circumstances, if there's a good reason for it, can be looked at by this board again to determine whether or not it's fair or it's right. And that's, in fact, one of the special hardships here is that when these people owned this house originally, they really had 2 lots of land. And because of the changes, that was all changed, and they did not have a second lot of land that they could build upon.
Can you say that again?
Say that again.
Can you repeat what you just said?
I said when they bought the house, they had 2 lots of land side by side.
They had 2 lots?
Yes.
How do you get 2 lots?
Well, I don't have the plan in front of me there, but
I think what Mr. Eliades is referring to is that based on what the zoning was at the time the house was bought, it was available for 2 houses as opposed to just 1. That there was enough land in order to have 2 houses there, given the dimensional requirements at the time when the house was bought. Now, with the zoning being what it is, it's only large enough for 1 without a variance.
Okay, so I believe I asked this question this morning. So what was the square footage requirement prior to the 10,000?
I don't know what exactly it was off the top of my head, but it seems like Mr. Eliades is alluding to the fact that it was less than 10,000 square feet.
Yep.
I don't know what it was.
my point being, Mr. Chairman, that in each and every instance, whether it be in the Highlands in a two-family zone, or in Belvedere or Pawtucketville or wherever it is, the rules and regulations allow this board to look at the situation and make a determination as to whether or not it is appropriate or isn't appropriate. And I can certainly say, people have been talking tonight about how many years they put in the city. Well, I think except for Mr. Wallace maybe, who's my senior, I think I'm probably good at calling myself the oldest person here, 7 decades anyways. So I think I know a little bit about how the city developed and what has happened. And the fact of the matter is that you have to, as I said, you look at each and every situation, and those are the important things that this board is required to look at. So a couple of more quick comments. I get the sense here, it's almost, this is not nice to say, this is almost like a haves and have-nots. We have our house, we have our property. Don't interfere. Don't you come along and have you're somebody else. And that isn't what Lowell is all about, or at least the Lowell that I grew up in and spent the last 70-odd years in. We're a community where people want to be together and help each other. I certainly heard that tonight from a lot of people. And I think that's a principal thing that I want to point out. Again, change the character of the neighborhood. I didn't, if somebody thinks that putting another house into this one lot changes the whole character of the neighborhood, I don't see it, but maybe I'm wrong. And forget the precedent business, as I said. Bottom line, you board, you are the arbiters of all of the facts and circumstances here. Your job. I don't have to tell you that. I've said it before. And if somebody says this doesn't show this, don't have a special hardship or this or that or whatever, the ultimate arbiter after you is a court of law. But you're the people who have acquired under our ordinance to make that decision. So just let me check and see. I just want to make sure I think I covered everything, but of course, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to reserve the right to have a little something if there's some other subject matter that comes up.
Well, I do have some questions for either yourself or Mr. Theodoro. Doesn't matter to me. Who stands there?
Thank you. I'm set for now.
In your statement of case that you provided to the board, I have a couple of questions for you. So according to, on the petition statement section, you're saying due to the size and shape of the premises, the residence does have a hardship. And what's the hardship?
Well, I think Attorney Eliades spoke to you with respect to what the hardship is. Okay. That with respect to the zoning that existed there, the zoning was changed. The zoning was changed, and as a result of that, through a government action, the size of the lot that they could put a single-family house up on, this parcel was changed. As a result of the government action, a variance should be granted here because it's a hardship to these individuals because of the government action of decreasing the size of a buildable lot, which is analogous to what is a taking. And that's what Mr. Eliades was alluding to in his reference, in his question to you, his answer to you with respect to this.
Another question I have is, this is number 4. You talk about the city would benefit by creating another home, which would result in additional taxes to the city. Can you explain that?
Well, part of the elements of granting a variance is a benefit to the public good. In creating another taxable lot, in building this house and creating another residential taxable lot, you're creating additional revenue for the city. And in doing that, you are benefiting the public good.
So the assumption is if you build a home, you're going to increase value?
The assumption is...
Based on the current home that's already there?
If you're going to build a home, you are going to do 2 things. Number 1 is to increase the revenue in the city for producing the taxes, as well as increasing the value. Yes.
Right. So what you're telling us is by building the second home, you're going to increase revenue for that one lot?
No, we're going to increase the revenue that's produced for the tax benefit for the city, for that one lot that is created, yes.
Right.
So that's an additional taxable revenue for the city.
Right. But there's already value for the lot currently, correct?
The value for the lot that exists is taxed as a separate lot with no building on it. A lot with the building on it, with a new home on it, is taxed at a substantially higher rate than one without a home on it. So
Well,
there is...
the address of the lot is 55, correct?
That's correct.
And it's 16,000 and change, right?
That's correct.
So there isn't 2 lots, there's 1 lot.
Well, when you put a home on the additional lot,
Right.
you're increasing the revenue for the city, and that's a benefit for the public good.
Okay. Okay. Another thing you mentioned here is the proposed application does not change the uses of the zoning district. So we're not talking, the variance that's being requested is dimensional in nature, correct?
That is correct.
It's not the use.
No, it's not the use.
Right, okay. And in the suggested decision section, which I know your law office does a lot with these variances, what's the special hardship that we're talking about here?
And again, we're going back to the special
Okay,
hardship.
So your point is because of past zoning?
That's correct.
Okay. And what's the financial part of this?
That goes under the same type of hardship. The change of the zoning
Yeah.
creates the hardship that includes any hardship that's associated with that zoning change.
But the financial impact is to whom?
Is to the person who owns that lot that can't develop that lot as a result of this zoning change.
Okay. Okay, do you have anything else you want to add at this point?
I believe that Mr. Silk would like to address, in some of the comments that were made, it appeared that there was a whole list of properties in the area that could be divided and could be subdivided, and further, and I wanted Mr. Silk, who did some extensive research with respect to those lots, and I wanted him to speak on that subject, that is not as extensive or as wide as they had indicated.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Bill Silk, 55 Florence Road. One of the major objections that I had heard from the neighborhood meeting was the fact that if we were allowed to build on this lot, that there would be X number of properties. I was never given that. That was news to me as we spoke. So I did some research. I came down to City Hall. I gathered the page 90 and 91 from the city map. I identified in the direct area of Florence Road, Sanders, Lincoln, basically the streets that were in question. I identified 14 of similar size. I know 2 were mentioned on Florence Road where people had moved just within the last year, basically. One was at 11 Florence Road. If they were to keep an entire lot as we are proposing here today, the second lot would have had 21 feet of frontage. They also would have had to knock the house down. The second house on Florence Road actually has a larger lot. I know the former owner there, he moved to the house next door. He would have had to knock his house down to have 2 lots there. The other lots that I have found, not one would have as much frontage or as square foot of the second lot as ours, not one. And many, if you ride around the neighborhood, you will see that the house would have to come down or would have to have a substantial part of the home cut off. Not one lot would have more square footage or frontage than what we are proposing today. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Theodore? Okay. All right, we're going to move it to the board. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to George E. or George T., whoever wants to go first. Usually, when we have this type of proposal, we like to see the what the home will actually look like with the elevations and the landscaping plan. Unless I'm missing a document, I think, something that is what they would like to have, but not what would be on the site necessarily.
We came here for the variances before the planning board, but which we have to apply for a special permit for lot width. However, in the materials that were submitted prior to the public hearing and the handouts that I gave the members of the board, there were elevations in there that showed a proposed plan that we had, and the proposed elevations that would be a 33 by 45 dimensional home within the setbacks that are shown on the plan that you have, the site plan that you have, that would fit into those dimensions, which we have. The setbacks are 62 by 35. And my question is, did you get those copies? Yes, that's
This is the one that I think everyone on the board received. So.
That's correct.
Okay. I guess my question with this is that there's no dimensions attached to this document. So
I have some additional copies here that may have a little bit more information that you have there, but not much.
If I may, the dilemma here is which comes first, the chicken or the egg? So we would normally be at the planning board with some plans, et cetera, site plan, all the dimensions, et cetera, but we were told by the Department of Planning and Development that we must come here first. And so that's where the issue becomes a problem. Needless to say, should you grant the concept of a variance in this case, we would have to meet the special requirements of the site plan review as well.
right, and I realize that, and often applicants don't have the 2 things that I mentioned, and it's a condition upon approval that the final plans be submitted and reviewed by the planning board or the planning office. So
we would agree, should you vote to grant a variance this evening, that it would be understood, or that a condition of that would be not only that we go back for site plan review, but that we come back to this board as a condition for a final check on the dimensions, et cetera.
I don't want to repeat a lot of things that were mentioned both by folks in favor and against the petition, or by George E. and George T. I would like to follow up, and maybe other board members were going to do this too, on a couple of the comments from the planning office which haven't been addressed yet. So one is the sidewalk. It's sort of an odd situation there where the sidewalk comes down from the beginning of Florence. It ends in front of this proposed new lot and then picks up again in front of the current home. So just
We would work with DPD and doing the improvements and putting the sidewalk in with the granite curbing and keeping it consistent with whatever DPD would like. And that would be an improvement. We understand that it doesn't exist there now.
And I think one of the folks that spoke in opposition, and I had a similar question initially, but now you've sort of clarified that. The site plan that you provided for the new lot, it is a little confusing because it appears to show, you're trying to show the setbacks, but what you're showing looks like a home that's 2 or 3, 2 times the size of the current home, when in fact you were just trying to show the setbacks.
That is correct. What's on there are just the dimensional setbacks there. The proposed home that we have has a width and depth of approximately 33.5 by 45. And it's not consistent with these setbacks right here. It's substantially smaller.
And I guess just one last comment before other members get a chance. What Mr. Silk actually just said a couple of minutes ago was something that I was going to bring up, and that is because I drove around the neighborhood several times and also used to live in near there on Hawthorne Street a few blocks away, I noticed that these other oversized lots, again, the way the homes are situated is very different from this lot. This lot actually, in my opinion, actually looks odd and out of place for the neighborhood because the home isn't in the center of this large lot with a lot of landscaping. It's just this wide open field, of course, with the fencing and the swimming pool in the back. So again, I did notice going around the neighborhood that a lot of these other large lots have, as Mr. Silk said, I hadn't thought of it at the time, that some of the homes would have to be demolished in order to then be subdivided and have 2 new homes built. And also what Mr. Eliade said about precedent, again, I'm not an attorney, but I agree with what he said about we take each of these on a case-by-case basis, and so it doesn't become an automatic that anywhere from 14 to 16 to 18 lots are just automatically going to be subdivided at some point. So.
And that also speaks to the fact that in your materials you have, as part of the application process, is the submission of the deed. And in the legal description to the deed, you see 2 very old plan references that refer to approximately 2 8,300 square foot lots. The house originally was erected on one of those lots, 8,300 square feet, and then again in 1920, the other lot was acquired and never built on. So it's unique in the sense of where this house sits, and it's unique where we propose to subdivide it and create this lot.
Well, that's all for right now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So if I can just follow up on the comment, Ms. Theodoro, you just made at the end there. You talked about uniqueness. What's unique?
This house goes back to 1900. We did the research and looked at the deeds that go back to I believe it's 1921 was the original deed where the house sat on that lot, and then a subsequent parcel was acquired a few years later, another 8,400 square foot parcel, and was never built on.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, first of all, I want to say thank you to all the people who came out and spoke, whether you're in favor or against the petition. And I also want to thank the applicant for the kind of detailed plan and package you submitted. Weighing all the pros and cons, and when I see an application, I kind of think about what are the benefits and kind of one of the negative impacts it has on the community. And to me, I feel that Mr. and Mrs. Silk have done, their part, and they've talked with their neighbors. They've been very just due diligent and very careful and thoughtful in their planning of this lot and the subdivision and the addition to the home. I think variance could be granted. And also, I know Danny Silk too, and he's just an amazing person. And I've also gotten to meet Mr. Silk in various community endeavors she's involved with. But that aside, the project overall, I think on its face value, it will probably add to the neighborhood. So overall, I think this is a good project. Thank you.
Thank you, Van. Dennis.
Through Mr. Chairman, I'd like to do a couple of cleanup things here first before we go forward. The beginning of the hearing the petition, you mentioned the open space. You'd like to, or I'm sorry, you'd like to increase the variance to include a
To
variance
include
for
FAR.
floor to area ratio.
Floor area ratio, yes.
So your the current code or zoning requires. What's the FAR that's required for this?
It's 0.35 in the current dimensional
0.5?
tables.
Okay.
We believe that with the proposed 33 by 45, when you calculate maybe the porch area or basement area, which is considered with that, considered in the floor area ratio when doing the calculations, we believe it will be above the 0.35.
To what?
We believe that probably in excess of 0.5.
Really? So you're asking for the variance to state that you'll be getting a variance for a 0.5 floor to area ratio?
We don't have the specific calculation because we don't have the plans, but the specific plans with the floor plans and everything else that would be included to do the specific calculation. So if we could ask for the variance to include a floor area ratio under 5.1, and we'd be happy to come back and have a set of stamped plans for approval.
Wow. Okay, so this is pretty loose then. All right.
Well, and it's the only reason that it's an expensive proposition for any applicant to have a set of stamped architect plans in advance when making the application. That's primarily the reason.
So the whole building, the whole house that we're downsizing into, would have a square footage of roughly 3,000
Can I give you a
square
copy
feet?
of what we have?
I'm just trying to follow the logic here that we're downsizing into a smaller property because we have a 5-bedroom property.
So
We're talking about
we're
an FAR of
downsizing to a
0.5.
three-bedroom property. That's approximately 1,765 square feet.
17, okay, so why is,
1765 square feet into a three-bedroom property the dimensions are 33 by 7 and 45 by 4.
as I understand FAR, if the lot is 6,789 square feet, you're asking for half of that lot to be allowed for the home square footage, correct? You said 0.5?
We believe it would be over 0.35, but I don't know what the calculations would be. I don't know what the FAR calculation would be specifically. You're an architect, Mr. McCarthy. You have the advantage on me with respect to that.
But I'm just trying to do the math here, and you're asking for potentially to 0.5, and that's 3,400 square feet.
It's not. It's 1765 square feet is the size. But I think that and correct me if I'm wrong, it's 1765 square feet, and if you use that calculation with the lot size of 6769, but it's my understanding that you have to include the space of the cellar. Then,
Is it a finished cellar?
no, it's not a
Is it
finished,
man cave
it
or
is
something?
not a finished cellar.
Then I don't see how that's applicable here, so.
It was my understanding that you had to include
I don't know, maybe Joe,
whatever,
you could weigh in.
whatever potential space was my understanding you had to include in the FAR. And again,
All right.
but certainly, it's not a 3,000 square foot home.
I'm hoping it's not.
It's
because
not,
it
it's
doesn't
not.
sound like a downsizing.
And it's not an 18,000 square foot home. It's 1760, approximately 1,800 square feet. 1765 is it based on the dimensions that I gave of 33 and a half by 45 and a half.
Excuse me, Joe, could you
Yeah,
weigh in
we've
on it?
traditionally applied finished space in a basement, but not unfinished space.
Correct. That's how I've always understood it too. So if it's a finished basement, then yes, it would apply to the square footage that would equate to the FAR.
The dilemma, if I may say, Mr. McCarthy, is exactly what I was speaking to before. We were not allowed to go and bring plans of a house to the site, to the planning board, because we were told you have no permission to be able to build on that lot. So don't even bother putting together the specificity kind of thing you're looking for, and go through all of that time and money and expense until you know whether or not such a house would be allowed, which is why I suggested that that could certainly be a condition of any approval, that it meets both site plan review and final approval of FAR, et cetera, with this board.
That's fine, but I think the lot that you've got here allows for the construction of 2,300 square feet, plus, actually, higher than 2,300 square feet. So I don't think you need a variance for the FAR. I see it.
You're probably right, but I can't speak to that because I don't know exactly what the house is. And the other difficulty I have, I recently told the planning board that I flunked traffic engineering 1-2.
Okay.
And I'll repeat that to you, that I flunked architectural dimensional things like FAR 1-2. And the fact of the matter is that we know, I shouldn't say we know, the difficulty was that the number that was originally placed on the application, as you know, exceeded the FAR, I believe, that was available for this size. So it was for that reason that George indicated we might need a variance on the FAR.
Okay. Joe, on the site plan application, we had at one time 2 75-foot wide lots back in 1900 or whenever it was that the original house was built. Now the direction is to accept a 90-foot wide lot and a 60-foot wide lot versus to accept the hardship case that Mr. Theodoro mentioned, was that at one time it was 2 75-foot lots. So I'm just wondering where the mindset is to go with two lots that are so different in size, one being 90 and one being 60 versus two that are 75 feet, for instance.
I think it's probably more appropriate for the applicant to address why they chose
Okay, so-
to subdivide, how they chose to subdivide.
That wasn't direction then from the planning department then?
No.
Okay.
The reason we did that, if we came before the board and we asked to do that, then we would have two undersized lots, and we would have to get a variance for the house and get a variance for the other proposed lot. So we decided to, when preparing this plan, to make the house lot, the old house lot, conform to today's dimensional requirements, and to make the other lot undersized and request relief before the Board of Appeals.
I'm having trouble following your hardship case, because you're basically making a case that at one time it was two lots when they purchased the property, and now they only have one lot. and you're asking for it to be restored back to 2 lots, but you're not following the configuration of the original.
We're not. We're doing that to, we thought that this would be a reasonable configuration of the 2 lots by leaving 1 lot, since we're working with today's zoning, that we have to have 1 lot where the existing dwelling sits, conform to the zoning for frontage and the square footage, and not ask for relief on that lot, but ask for relief on the other lot.
It's a substantial amount of relief you're asking for.
That is correct.
It's over 30%.
We understand.
That's a lot of relief.
We understand that.
That's more relief than I think was asked for on the Harvard Street site. I think that actually met the lot area, but didn't meet the frontage, whereas this isn't meeting lot area or frontage.
But again,
Not that that's a precedent on Harvard Street, and I don't mean to imply that precedent's being set here, but everything's taken on its own merit. But having a hard time following the direction that you've given us to consider this a hardship with the fact that it was originally 2 separate lots at 75-foot frontage, and now you have a new lot at only 60-foot frontage. Even though I understand that back in the neighborhood, back in the 1900s, there's a lot of small lots, but we obviously made direction for zoning to have larger lots, 90-foot frontage, 10,000 square foot area. And we're substantially deviating, and there's a lot of neighbors that have spoken against it. So they're clearly thinking that we're deviating also, and maybe not in the public good.
What we say to that, Mr. McCarthy, is that a proposed house that's placed on this lot here would fit in with this neighborhood here. We have neighbors on both sides that don't have any issues at all, and that would fit in with the lot and have it tastefully done.
It would fit into the mindset of the way it was designed in 1900. But the way the city adopted zoning in 2004, whenever it was that this new criteria came in place, it's not in keeping with that.
Well,
Clearly, that's why the variance is being asked for.
And that is correct, and that's why the variance is being asked for, and that's why you have this lot that was changed as a suburban single-family,
Right.
and you have a block over
Right.
where you have the zoning a block over, which is substantially different.
Well, that's the way the Highlands is.
I understand that.
That's all over the Highlands.
So we're asking that, given the uniqueness of the area and given the uniqueness of these streets here from Florence Road to Sanders on one side to Van Greeby, that although we're asking for a variance here to do this will fit in with the neighborhood. And I believe that that's important. That's a criteria that can't be ignored, that is important here. And we're not setting a precedent to change the neighborhood. We're not setting a precedent that you're going to have people beating down the door to do these variances. Everyone has to go through this process here, through the public hearing, and present this and do everything that is required of them to do it. And that's what we're doing here. And we went ahead and Mr. and Mrs. Silk met with the neighbors. We did a neighborhood meeting, and we tried to answer questions and to do everything that's necessary here. And so it is in your hands to ask for relief, and that's what the request is. When you have a zoning ordinance, you have a right to ask for a variance, to ask for a change over here, and it's a great responsibility that you have, and it's a great responsibility that you have, and it's in your hands that we're asking for this relief.
One of the criteria that I think is required is a graded site plan, that we don't have any grades on this site. But looking at the lot, it shows a relatively flat lot.
I'm sure you've been out to the site, and you can attest to that it is a flat lot.
How do we have a hardship for topography? It's a requirement of the variance.
It goes to the issue, that all goes to the issue of the change of the zoning is a change in the size that the property owner would have a right to go ahead and develop that property, and that is a government action, and with respect to that has to do with what we had said is analogous to a taking of the property, and we argue that it goes to that issue. and we think that that's a substantial issue.
There's a number of lots in the vicinity that are double lots from what might have been lot sizes back when the subdivision was made. I think across the street, it's a triple lot at 50-foot wide. I think it's, so would that mean in that case that they had a substantial kind of?
I haven't
just
reviewed
thinking-
anything with
just
respect
thinking,
to it.
How do you follow this forward?
yeah,
with all the lots in that neighborhood that are certainly under 90 feet. 50 foot is, I think, the rule back maybe when the subdivision was done.
Well, I haven't reviewed any of that information, but with respect to this property, it did exist as two separate lots, approximately 8,000 square foot each. The one house sat on this lot, and the other lot was left vacant.
No, you're right, and it made, I'm trying to get a ledge to stand on here from your argument, and I'm struggling with it, but thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Before I go to Sean, just one quick thing. There was a comment about Washington Parkway zoning, what zone it was in. Is it SSF or TTF?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, because it's kind of interesting. If I look at the map here, I can't even figure out which one's Washington Parkway, so, all right. Thank you. Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I may interrupt, Mr. Bailey, a portion of Washington Parkway is SSF and a portion is TSF.
Oh, that makes it clear. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Theodoro. I'd like to thank the Silks and everybody else who came out, all the members of the public, for voicing your opinions on this. It's a very tough situation at this. But one thing is, and has been said before, is you're right. We are the board that will make this determination, and precedence doesn't kick in. Every piece of land is different and unique in its own separate way, and that's why we have zoning rules, and that's why people have to come before us to go over their various situations. And in reviewing this and going up to the property, and again, I appreciate the members of the public that came in opposition, but I didn't see any real situations with this. The lots, as you state, seem similar. The lot that you're trying to put in seems similar in size to many of the surrounding ones. In fact, am I looking at it? The Silks lot is a little bigger than many of the ones that are 10,000 square feet or more. And it doesn't appear that it's going to change any quality or character of the neighborhood or have any detrimental effect. The piece of property that looks like you're looking to put in would fit in with this, and that's my opinion. But I still reserve the right to listen to my fellow board members and anything else comes up. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Okay. So there's been, I guess, a lot of information shared between people for the project, people against it. You shared some information, Mr. Theodoro. There seems to be a lot of back and forth. Mr. Leidy's, hit on a couple of things about precedent. You talked about uniqueness. Both those items, came across my thought process when I went through this. I know the neighborhood very well. I've been up there many, many years myself. So a lot of the comments that came from people that have lived in the Highlands, I can associate with. But, we're here to look at the land and only the land. We're not here to look at and hear non-land use comments and reasons why it should be approved or not approved. I know some of the, I'll call it data that some of the neighbors put out there. I actually had the same type of data collection. For instance, looking at the street on its own merit, 2/3 of the homes, based on my calculations, are at least 10,000 or greater. Which brought me back to, what is the real value and true value of each lot of land? The other thing was, I know you've talked about the uniqueness. I know Dennis kind of hit on this a little bit, but again, if I look at that proposed new lot, we'll call it, where the new home would go, I couldn't come up with any hardships on the land itself, if I look at that. Dennis's point about it pretty much being flat, I mean, I think that's true. I think if we take it the current use, obviously it's usable open space as it's currently and has been used, at least since the Silks have been there for 14 years. I'm not even sure how long the pool's been there, who put the pool in. That doesn't really matter. There was a comment by the city regarding the current fence. Where does that reside on the plans that we were given,
It's,
Mr. Theodore?
you see the in-ground pool
Yep.
that's to be removed?
Yep.
It's just north of that, of the in-ground pool.
Yeah. No, again, I'm familiar with the site. I was just trying to size it up with, if you look at Google overview, you can pick it up. But that was a comment that was made by the city as it relates to the plans that were given to us, so. When I make the comment about the usable open space, it has been used, for some families, and again, maybe the Silks use it as such, but it's a nice open space for a family to have kids play in or, entertain family. The use of the pool, I know, I've heard pluses and minuses about having pools. I've never had a pool, but obviously a pool was used, a fence was put up per regulation, so I would have to believe there was some recreational enjoyment by the current owners with that property and using that open space. But now they want to take that open space and put a new home in there. So to me, the suggestion that you had made to Dennis's comment, how'd you come up with the sizes? I guess maybe my assumption was you were trying to get 10,000 to at least match with current zoning. And it sounds like that's what your proposal was, which left you with the remainder of the undersized lot. So I think, the past usage of the land was reasonable use. And now, due to the dimensional requirements that we've talked about, the proposal is to subdivide the land into a brand-new structure and a brand-new home. And I know a lot of the neighbors have a difference of opinion about the density that may give the appearance of. And I think because of the location of where it's at on Florence Road and using the relationship to Washington Parkway seems to be the more of the comparative. So the reason why I believe the hardship, at least from your end, that you're trying to explain is the literal enforcement is causing the hardship. Is that fair enough to say?
Well, the historical change of the zoning there, in some of the case law indicates that a taking of property is a government action, and that if you cannot use the property and develop the property the way you would like, for example, if there was a taking that took square footage off and you couldn't develop it, that government action would allow someone to go ahead, and that's a hardship to that property. They would be allowed to go ahead and apply for variance. We're saying that the zoning change is analogous, is analogous to a government taking, whereas you would be able to develop the property in the past. You can't do that in the future. And that's our argument. It's analogous to a taking, which is a government action that created a hardship, and had there been a taking of a portion of that property, you would be legally entitled to apply for a variance based upon that hardship, and we're saying that hardship exists here.
So I guess that same hardship would be a reason for any petitioner going forward, correct?
Not necessarily. There were two lots that had existed there
Okay.
historically. And there's a distinction in that.
Yeah, there could be a distinction. Same thing could apply to any piece of property if we go throughout the whole city, correct?
Well, you'd have to analyze it, each one individually, but here we have two lots that existed independently since
Yep.
1920.
Okay. Was that in any of your write-ups before tonight?
No, it was not.
Okay. All right, because that's, you know, I've never heard that. Joe, is that anything that's ever come before this board before? I don't believe so.
I haven't heard it explained that way previously.
Yep, okay. All right. Well, again, I guess we look at the hardship. I mean, the hardship has been incurred because the petitioner has decided to take action to subdivide the lot. And the relief that's being requested is, and I would agree with Dennis, is substantial. And if we also take a look at the issue around precedent, well, as you know, Mr. Theodoro, you know, the burden is on the petitioner to prove whether a hardship is in fact being applied and a variance is to be approved. My concern is the going forward that the ZBA will be burdened in the future if we're faced with similar lots like this, with similar type of relief. The burden gets reversed, and I don't think that's the purpose of the board. So I have a concern about that. You know, the subdivision's being taken by the petitioner, not because of any direct action, but they've made a conscious decision and a family decision to subdivide their lot to build a new home. But I'm really struggling with the relief that's being requested. And it sounds like that based on the plans that were submitted, you want to go with the 10,000 and change, and then with the 6,700.
We could have presented. We could have presented.
Yep.
Plans showing two equally sized lots, and split them directly down the middle. Had we done that, we would have had to have asked the board, which we thought was more relief, in that we would have to ask for variances on both lots, because we would be creating an undersized lot for the existing house. And I'm not certain what and we certainly would have to ask for relief for not only the undersized lot for each property, but we would have less than 90 feet of frontage on each lot, so we would have to ask for variances on that as well. So rather than ask for variances on two lots for undersized and variances, and perhaps the lot area per dwelling unit, we decided to burden one lot with that, creating a 6,700 square foot lot, and asking for, and so to keep one lot intact for the existing home that would conform with this variance and have the zoning ordinance and have 10,000 square feet and the correct amount of frontage, and only ask for the relief on the other lot. We thought that we would be asking for less relief from the board if we conducted ourselves in this manner.
Yeah, but I appreciate that. I think that's the struggle with the lot, is starting with the size of the lot, and that's where the real challenge was for you. You know, if we had a 20,000 square foot lot, we'd probably be looking at this a little bit differently, but because of the size of the lot, and even the shape there's nothing unusual about the shape of the lot, but because of the size.
But when you consider this and you walk up Florence Ave and you take a right on Washington Parkway, and you're given the fact that we have a very old established neighborhood here, Granted, there are a number of different styles, but this is an old established neighborhood. When you walk up Florence Road and take a right on Washington Parkway, and you see the houses on the left side of Washington Parkway on the right side, you see substantially smaller lots, and all those homes blend in with the area, and that a house sitting on this lot would blend in and would not derogate from the zoning ordinance by granting this. It would blend right in. So I think when you take a look at the totality of the circumstances here, and you take a look at everything that's involved, you look at a house that would sit on this lot, and it would look like it fit right into this neighborhood. And I ask the board to consider it that way with the totality of the circumstances here when rendering what is a very important decision.
Yep. Well, I think it's been explained, the size of the home that's going in there. We've talked about the size of the lot. We've talked about neighboring lots. I think we all understand what the situation is. My struggle with this petition is the relief that's being requested. And I personally believe a precedent will be set, and the burden, as I mentioned before, is going to shift to the zoning board, not to the petitioners. Yes, Mr. Leidy.
I think the precedent I'm hearing being set this evening is that unless there's some absolute change in the size, the shape, the configuration of the lot, there'll never be a variance granted. And I don't think that's the intent, and I don't think that's what decades of interpretations of the law by the zoning board has been. So if there's a precedent, that's the precedent I think we have to watch out for. There are plenty of good reasons, as I've heard on many other occasions, that make the totality of what's been presented to the board this evening sufficient to meet that requirement without a cave in the ground.
Yep. I appreciate the comments. Anything else, Mr. Theodoro?
I think the last point that Mr. Leidy's made is important. It's important to consider when granting a variance, with this board has a great deal of experience in doing, and in granting a variance in any neighborhood in the city of Lowell. And I ask you to consider that when rendering your decision.
Okay. So, any other members have any other comments? Any members have any conditions?
Through Mr. Chairman, I think we had 3 conditions.
Okay. You want to mention it?
The first one would be that the final building plans would be provided for review and approval by the board, and that the second one would be that the applicant would work with DPD to provide a new concrete sidewalk that would complete the existing sidewalk at either side of the proposed lot. And then the third might be that the driveway will meet current zoning for curb cut requirements. It's unclear on the site plan that that's the case, so I would just make that a condition.
We're agreeable to those conditions, Mr. McCarthy.
Okay. Any other comments by other board members? So I guess in summary, based on the prerequisites of the granting of the variance, and again, as I always mention this, I'm only one vote, but I don't believe the petitioner has met the prerequisites for the reasons that I had mentioned, and it could be other members that have their own reasons. But if there's nothing else, I'll make a motion. If we have a motion, please.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2016-21 for 1 variance. Is that correct? Or 2 variances?
It's a variance for frontage, for lot area per dwelling unit, and for the undersized lot.
So
there are 3.
Yep.
There are 3.
3 variances.
3 variances. And it was determined that we don't need floor area ratio, so 3 variances.
For the previously mentioned 3 variances, Joe, with the following 3 conditions. The first condition is that the final construction plans be provided for review and approval of the board. Second would be that the applicant work with DPD to provide a new concrete sidewalk to complete the existing sidewalk at either side of the proposed lot. And the third would be that the proposed driveway will meet the current zoning for curb cut requirements.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Callahan?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. Bailey?
Denied.
Mr. McCarthy?
Denied.
Mr. Peck?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. Palio?
Approved with conditions.
Okay. So the vote is 3-2, so it's approved?
Does not pass.
Doesn't pass, okay. Okay, well, Mr. Theodoro, I think you know what the next course of action that the petitioner has. So it's been denied on account of 3-2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you for members of the board for your consideration.
Yep, and thank you to everyone for attending this evening. Thank you.
I hope so. Well, no, they can come back. Yeah. No, you leave him right alone and you get out of here. And
You don't understand me?
No, I don't understand.
Oh. From the heart. Yeah. I mean, we lived there 15 years. I lived in West Street for 37 years. Oh, is that right? So my property, they built it up like unbelievable. Is that right? Yeah, exactly.
All right, if I could ask, if you're not here for the next petition, if I could, okay, our next matter before us is back to new business, ZB 2016-29, and the petition's a special permit. The applicant is Kang Realty Trust, property is located at 26 Wood Street, and the petition seeking special permit approval for the installation and internal illumination of signage for a recently renovated Dental Dreams under section 6.3 of the City of Lowell zoning ordinance. I'll try to speak as loud as possible.
It is terrible.
Okay.
And I try to avoid these because my hearing is so bad.
Okay.
See, where do I start? We The owner recently put an addition on the building. Way back when I was the original general contractor for the original building back eight years or so ago. When we drew up the plans at that time, we just roughly indicated where a sign was going to go. The sign, as it is designed, meets all the city requirements. It's less than 20 feet high. The signage allowed is 50 square feet. This is 50 square feet, which includes the top banner, which is the street address, 26 Wood Street. There was some comment about the 4 panels at the planning board, or the planning department asked about the 4 panels. The structure is designed for 4 units. At the current time, Dental Dreams takes the entire building. They are on a 5-year lease, renewable leases. So really, and the current lease has another 4 years to run. So they could conceivably, at the end of 5 years, say they're going to go someplace else. So that's why the owner decided to go with the 4 different panels. There was never any intent on the owner's part to do any off-site advertisement ever. That's never been even thought about. Dental Dreams will be allowed to do whatever they want on that sign within the rules and regulations of the city. As far as the location is concerned, I don't know if you're aware, but the state some time ago took a slice of land out of this property and also the property which is north of them, Basil's property, for the future right turn only lane. If we ever get our wonderful 4-lane bridge built, that would be nice. So right at the moment, I can't say to you exactly where the sign is going to go. It will be probably more in front of the addition than in the center of the entire building.
Okay, so I'll call it the picture that was given to us.
Yes.
That shows the sign. Are you saying that's where it's going, or it may move?
It will move because we just made a general location on the plan, not knowing really that slice of property was so pronounced, because at one side, if you're standing on the property on the left side, it is just about where it's supposed to be originally. On the right-hand side, it comes in about 3 feet. So we have to move the sign closer. If you're standing, if you're looking at the building, the sign will slide to the right. So we have the parking and the travel lane, and then the sign.
Okay. So that, in the comments that came back from the city in regards to the sign, Joe, if I can just bounce that off here. Number 1 talks about appears to locate the sign in an existing landscaped island.
No, it won't go there.
Okay. So
it will move. There's another picture that shows the front of the building.
Yep.
Wherever I have it, and it will move.
Is it that darkened area?
It'll
that's-
move. If you're looking at the building, it'll move to the right.
Okay. It'll move. So for instance, you see where the exit sign is on the Demoulas property? See the exit sign?
It'll probably move 20 or 30 feet.
Is it going to be
Yes,
even farther to
if
the
you're
right?
looking at the building, it'll move to the right.
Right.
This is the addition.
Yep.
So if my measurements are correct, it's going to be pretty close in line with the division between the original building and the addition.
Yeah. So, Joe, based on, was this petition one of yours, or did it belong to? Yeah. So, Joe, if they move the sign over, do you have any comments or concerns about that at this point?
The only thing that we would want to take a look at, if it's not going to be in the landscape area, then it's in an area that was earlier identified as travel lane. So just making sure that there's no issues with the traffic engineer in terms of any car backing up out of one of those spaces. There's probably enough width, but it's not indicated how far, what that width is going to be with where the sign is going to be. So there should be an updated site plan showing exactly where the sign's going to be on the property.
Right.
And exactly how much width there will be for any car trying to travel past the sign, and or if it'll interfere with any car backing up out of a space.
Okay. So, based on what this gentleman just said, it's not going to be any closer to the existing sidewalk, is it?
It doesn't sound like it's going to be any closer to any existing sidewalk. Sounds like it'll still be maintained on the property. There should be, it's a good point to bring up the sidewalk. It should also be identified to make sure the sign is not going to overhang the sidewalk, because in that case, then we'd have to go in front of the city council, correct?
No, there'll be sufficient room. If we slide it to the right of the building, there'll be sufficient room to locate it completely on the property and leave the 22-foot travel aisle.
Okay, does that, I know we'll have it identified on the plan.
Yeah,
That's
so long
what
as
you've
it's
asked,
identified as being able to do so on the plan, then it
Yeah.
should be fine.
So what we're gonna, we're gonna continue with this, but we just, with the set of plans that you submitted to us, you'd have to just resubmit, update this exactly where the...
It's gonna go, okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, great. Anything else you want to add at this point? or-
If you have any questions, I can
Okay.
try to answer them.
All right, so what we'll do is we'll open it up to the public first, and then we'll open it up to the board. Anyone here that's in favor of this petition? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir. Oh, sorry.
I'm kind of new at this, so you'll have to excuse me a little bit.
Are you in favor or in opposition?
I'm opposition.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
I have the property at 42 Wood Street, which is adjacent to the end of this parking lot that they just put in, and you can't see it because of the building. It extends more, it would extend more to your right, and it faces my four-family.
Okay.
I have a
I know.
picture here if you...
Yeah, I'm pretty
it
sure.
shows.
Pretty
But
sure, I
if
know.
you put a sign there, it's going to take the privacy away from my tenants that are there. As the side of the building there's two big lights there that shine right into my building and go into the bedrooms and the kitchens of my tenants, and they've been complaining to me about it. And just recently, they were supposed to put a fence where you couldn't see through. You'll have to excuse me, I'm a little nervous. Privacy fence.
Yep.
And all they did was put a chain link fence. And they just recently put up some trees. But that's not privacy for my people that have gone through enough aggravation through the building of this property that we didn't abut it. We went along with it because progress is progress. But the things that they have promised us, they have not come through with. And in their parking lot, which is facing my property, they have two big, enormous lights that stay on all night long.
Okay.
Shines into the bedroom and the kitchens of the
Yep. So
family.
if I can do this, the purpose for the meeting tonight is
For
only
that
about the
sign.
sign.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So, that's okay.
Well, if you-
We won't forget about the other stuff, but
Okay.
what is your
My thing is, if
concern
it's
about
going
the
to be an
sign?
aluminum sign, it's going to stay on, it's going to shine, I'm sorry, it's going to shine onto my building.
So
there
you're
goes the
worried about
privacy.
how long it's going to be illuminated or lit
Exactly.
up?
How
Okay.
long Right, and I don't want it to bother my people anymore that they've gone through, you know?
Okay, so we'll address that with
Okay.
the owner.
Right. Thank you.
And I'll come back to your other issue.
Okay. All right.
Anybody else like to speak either in opposition or favor? Okay, hearing none on both of those, public hearing is closed. Open it up to the board. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to follow up on the questions the planning board, planning office had about the number of empty signs that, panels that are going up. Is there some, the owner is here, correct?
We can eliminate it so we can, it can be just one panel. There will be no crossbars.
Okay, so it would just be one large empty white panel?
It'd be just one panel with just one panel complete with the address panel at the top.
Okay, so it would just be, the panel would just be for Dental Dreams for right now? And there would be no empty panels?
There would be, the sign would be there with no crossbars.
Okay.
And whatever Dental Dreams wants to put in there, they would be allowed to put in there.
Okay, so, but would it be available if a second or third tenant does move into the?
If it comes to pass that Dental Dreams moves out or reduces its size within the building, and we'll say there are now 2 tenants, then the crossbars can be put back in. So each tenant would have their own advertising space.
I see. So right now, the only tenant in the
Dreams.
original building and the addition is Dental Dreams?
Dental Dreams, yes, sir.
Okay. So I would like to see that, I guess. I mean, I don't want the sign to have to be built later. That could be a prohibitive cost to the owner. But at the same time, I didn't want to see a bunch of empty panels. So if you're saying that Dental Dreams would use the entire sign until if at a future date it needs to be retrofitted for multiple
Yes.
tenants, then that can be
Yes.
done. Okay. That's the only question I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Van?
I have no comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Dennis?
Through Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions. First one is, why would we, why are you choosing not to place the pylon in the landscape island? Why is it moved into the drive lane, I guess? Why wouldn't you choose to put it in the landscape island?
If I'm understanding, why are we moving it?
Why wouldn't you choose to have it in the landscaped island?
That landscape island,
It seems to be
we
about
have discovered is actually on state, some of it, not all of it is on state property. So it can't go
understand.
there.
Got it.
We'd
Okay.
like to put it there.
I bet you
That
would. It
would be,
neater.
that'd be wonderful. It would be wonderful until the state comes along and decides they're gonna take it for the lane.
Okay. And then the second one is, I'm opposed to having additional illuminated panels that aren't serving as signage for the short term. I understand you want to design this for a long-term 4-tenant scenario, but I'd suggest that you have the Dental Dream sign at the top, and then have opaque panels for the remainder of the sign until such time you have tenants that require illuminated signs. And so
Well, the
I'd
sign-
rather see,
The sign would be opaque, it'd be a white panel that normally goes on any internally lit sign.
right, but what I'm seeing in my mind when you talk like that is we have a very tall white area that doesn't have any purpose other than causing a nuisance for our neighbors' tenants. It's not doing any purpose for providing notification as to what businesses are there because they aren't there yet. So I would rather see that bottom 3 panels not illuminated, be a solid panel.
Not illuminate the whole panel?
Not illuminate the bottom 3 panels. Only illuminate the top panel where you actually have signage that's functioning.
That's probably doable. But I can't give you the answer absolutely yes. I'm sure it's doable. It's electronics, it's lights.
What typically is done in that case is there's a opaque panel, whether it's metal or something else, that goes over the translucent piece to mask it until you need signage. And then when signage happens in the future, that panel is removed and the new signage panel is put on. At least that's how I'm familiar with how it happens.
I'm sure we can do that. If
I just don't see the reason for having illuminated blank panels, especially where they're
we're
not
hoping that Dental Dreams is going to fill up the whole sign.
Well, you're not providing a signage graphic that shows that. You're only providing a signage graphic for 1/4 of it. And Joe, would that be allowable per zoning for Dental Dreams
For
to
one, yeah, for one use, the square
Okay.
footage that's allowed is 30 square feet. So for something where it's 3 or more, that's where the 50 square feet comes in. So they designed it for multiple users, but they only have one user, so that's where.
So
the
certainly
comment
one
came
user could take that entire square footage of
50 square feet.
50 square feet and do a graphic that would work. What you're asking me to approve here tonight doesn't do that. You're just saying it's,
Well,
1/4 of it is for the signage.
I'm sure you realize that any business, if they're allowed to fill up this sign, they're going to fill up this sign. Dental Dreams or anybody else.
One would hope, but I'm not seeing that presented. I don't have a graphic here showing that, so I don't know that for a fact. And we're being asked to approve.
I can't answer for Dental Dreams.
Sure.
I don't represent Dental Dreams. I'm on a.
Maybe we could make
They
it
have me on speed dial.
Nope, maybe we could make it a condition.
But I don't. I can't right at this time say Dental Dreams is going to do X with the sign because I really don't know. I do know that any business, especially on this street, will fill up this sign
I understand.
rather quickly.
But I would like to see a condition made that the applicant provide a final graphic illustrating the Dental Dream signage intent, and that we illuminate only what the Dental Dream signage graphic requires.
I can't control Dental Dreams.
No.
If I understand, you want me to bring graphics in for that Dental Dreams is going to put on this sign. I can't do that because I don't control Dental Dreams. I can ask, but I can't.
So why don't we, well, we're going to continue, but maybe we need to let the other board members speak, but maybe we're going to need to continue it, have him go back and talk to the, so the owner isn't here, right? The owner of?
The owner is here.
The tenant isn't here, the tenant Dental.
He has no control over Dental Dreams either. Neither of us have any control over Dental Dreams.
Okay, yep.
All right, no further questions, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, what will be the hours of illumination for this particular sign?
I don't think that has been cast in stone. I would say probably to their closing time at least, which I understand at the present time is 8:30. So it might be 9 o'clock at night.
If we could just touch on the point of not having a designated space and the need to move this 30, 40 feet down the parking lot. Why is that coming into play? Why is there not a set location for this sign?
Because of the way the front lot line used to be square or parallel to the sidewalk. The state came in at some time in the past and took a slice out of that lot. Not just that lot, but the next lot downstream for a future right-only turn lane. And from one corner to the other corner, I think, if I remember, it's about a 3-foot difference. I haven't scaled it out, but I know it's sufficient enough that we have to move the sign. If you're looking at the building, we have to move it to the right. So we end up with the 20 feet of parking and 22 feet of travel lane. And then we would have the sign.
So wouldn't the lot line be already in schedule if that lane has, if the property has already been carved out?
I'm sorry?
If the property has completely been carved out by the Commonwealth, the state has taken over that section of land, wouldn't it be in final position now with what they're proposing to do down the line? So you can have a situated position?
I would love to move it. I would love to put it where it's depicted.
Okay.
But I can't, because I might get away with it for some time,
But you might have to take it down and start over.
sooner or later, somebody's going to catch on.
Yeah.
More sooner than later. It would, we have, because of the moratorium on that street and sidewalk, there's a 5-year moratorium on doing any work in that area. So we have put up temporary wood rail structures. And those wood rail structures are actually, I think, within about 6 inches on our property. And there is sufficient room to get the 20 foot of parking, 22 feet of travel space, and put the sign in.
My concern, frankly, is that there's no solid plan. There's no set location for the sign. There's no idea or plan about how the 3 remaining panels will be illuminated or not illuminated. It kind of seems incomplete to me at this time. So I'm having a real hard time making a decision because there's not a lot of facts here.
I'm losing most of the conversation. I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is it seems as though we have a temporary sign. We're looking to have a vote for a permanent sign that has no permanent location, has no defined use for 3/4 of it. And, you know, I got to be honest, if Dental Dreams is the key stakeholder here and what they're going to do with their portion of the sign, I think 1 or 2 things should have been put on them by the property owner. They should have sent a letter and made us aware of what their intentions was now and in the future. Are there future tenants that are coming into these spaces? Are those lights, you know, I have a lot of concerns for the neighbors having additional lighting going forward. All but Mr. McCarthy made the recommendation of the opaque or on the metal panel. I just feel, from my position right now, this is not a complete application. And those are my comments, Mr. Chairman, at this time.
Thank you, Gary. Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share Gary's same sentiments. I don't think that we have enough here to really go on, and I would certainly love to see what have some issue from Dental Dreams or something from them to say what their hours of illumination are, what the design may be. Again, I don't believe that we have a complete application here as well, and maybe the petitioner may want to consider, maybe want to get Dental Dreams involved, and maybe consider a continuance or something to try to get all the information that we need so we can have a complete application. So, but that's my thought process. So, thank you.
I didn't hear everything. I didn't hear your comments.
I share the same sentiments as Board Member Perrin, and I think that you don't have a complete application here. You may want to consider going back to the drawing board, but that's my opinion. I'll listen to the rest of the board members as to what they're...
I'm at a tremendous disadvantage.
Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like the board doesn't feel like this is a complete presentation and resolution as of yet. So what I would suggest is we continue this. You might want to go back and talk to, if this is the building owner over here, and then also have him or have the both of you sit with Dental Dreams and talk about what the intent is for the Dental Dreams portion. What's the intention for the 3, I guess, blank spots that are going to be on there? Another thing is exactly
Location of the.
location. And when you decide on the location, my suggestion would also be you might want to contact the city, discuss it with them first, just to get maybe if they have any concerns, comments, before that comes before us. I understand what this gentleman is talking about, if there's some concerns about illumination onto his property. Gary asked about the hours. I know you might want to get that straightened out. That's probably the building owner on the hours. What's the latest it's going to be on? If the business is closing at 8:30, I would think the lights would be off at 8:30, but why don't you discuss that with them also? Because I think that's fair and reasonable, the property owner next door who has some other concerns or issues. Let's see, hours of operation, final graphic. Yeah, this final graphic illustration, what are you asking there, Dennis?
Final signage graphic showing the intent to use the entire sign for the one Dental Dream branding element. Because, I mean, we don't know that. We don't know what it is.
Well, I will contact the regional director for Dental Dreams.
Yep. So,
and work with them and
yep.
see what we can come up with.
Joe, as far as continuing this, I'm not sure, can it be fit in for the next meeting, or are we?
Yeah, I mean, there's space on the next meeting agenda. There's a couple items, but not a lot.
Do you think, sir, we meeting in 2 or 3 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I don't know that I can do it in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So the next meeting will be June 13th, but you continue the other items too, earlier tonight.
I don't think we can get everything done in 2 weeks. Maybe not. We'll do a month. Yeah. Make it a month. Give us the extra time to get everything together.
Yeah. So what would the date be? June?
June 13th.
I'm sorry, June. Yep. Yep. So it'd be June 13th.
June 13th?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And then if for some reason, something happens, you're still not ready,
I'll
we
be
can
talking with Joe.
we can revisit it again. All right.
All right. Very
So I didn't forget about you yet, sir. So if we could.
I do want to speak to Arthur because there's some things that have happened in the neighborhood that he needs
So I want to take the vote first, and then I want to talk to this gentleman. So if I could ask for a continuance, please.
Through Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2016-29 for a special permit and variance for 26 Wood Street to be continued to June 13th.
Do you have a second?
Second the motion.
Roll call.
Mr. Perrin.
Continue to June 13th.
Mr. Bailey.
Continue to June 13th.
Mr. McCarthy.
Continue to June 13th.
Mr. Peck.
Continue.
Mr. Palia.
Continue to June 13th.
Okay. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. What is your name, sir?
Arthur Cimarrones.
Okay. And what's the property address?
4042 Wood Street.
Okay. So Joe, I know this isn't on the agenda, but could you I'll direct the question to you. Could you have somebody from the city talk to this gentleman about if there were certain conditions around the property? Now, he's claiming so, but could he call you tomorrow and just discuss what action can be taken or not taken?
I mean, depending on what it is, you know, if there were conditions of approval for the addition that, you know, weren't satisfied, we would have Sean Machado go out there. He's our enforcement agent. He would be the one to go out and review that.
Okay. So I know he's not on the agenda, but can he?
Yeah, so you can contact me or Sean directly
Yeah.
if you'd like.
So if you could get in touch with Mr. Jenowitz, maybe after the meeting, you can get his number, you know.
Okay.
Okay? All right. All right. Were there any, I don't think there was any meeting minutes, was there, Joe?
No.
No, okay. All right. Anybody else have any other comments, questions? So next meeting is May 29th? 23rd, yeah. Okay. All right, so could I have a motion to adjourn?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
So moved.